This week's edition of the Waterboys podcast features a young legend in the making, a friend of mine as well. It's not that often we get guests on the show who we actually have, like friendships with. I know Seth Galina from Pro Football Focus counts in that. I like to think this next guest counts as well. You can hear him as the radio play-by-play voice for the Los Angeles Clippers. He sometimes contributes to Tennis Channel as well. He has called an NFL game on Nickelodeon, of all places. And I'm sure you probably know his father, but we're going to make it more about him. Noah Eagle is this week's guest on the Waterboys podcast. Noah, it's been quite some time since we caught up with each other. Obviously, we have to plug in the Syracuse connection here. How have you been?
Everything is good, man. I'm not sure. Do I have to speak like Bobby Boucher in The Waterboy? Is that how this works? I'm not entirely positive because I can. I know that I can do it. I know deep down in here. I'm not going to.
You could do it. You could if you want.
Mama said I had to be on this podcast, so Mama said that I'm ready to go, and they got all those teeth and no tooth. Like I could go for the 40 minutes we're gonna go, or whatever it might be, but I think I'm going to stick with my own voice. I appreciate you guys having me on. And yes, Julian is right. We can't do this podcast without absurd amounts of mentions of Syracuse, because that's when you get to campus, they say when you leave campus, you have to talk about it nonstop. That's why we all talk about it all the time. It was drilled in our heads.
Oh my God, it's happened before, actually, with Ariel Helwani. Just Julian and Ariel going back and forth. I'm here. I'm like, okay, guys, we get it. We went to Newhouse. We get it. Anyways,
You know what's funny? Frank prepared so many questions about the UFC for Ariel. I was like, yeah, we're going to go in and talk UFC, and these guys are going to fight. And I'm just sitting back like, I'm not the biggest UFC fan. And then, like, Ariel just started going in. I'm like, oh, so you went to Newhouse. Oh, so you also went to the same undergrad I went. You're from Montreal. Like, what is this? It just turned into a whole Montreal-Syracuse thing. Frank was very disappointed. No, I'm kidding.
Not at all.
Yeah, well, it just, Frank, you feel left out at that point. I'm going to make sure that we don't make you feel left. Well, I guess let's turn this whole thing around. Frank, where'd you go to college? Let's get a bump out there.
Let's do that.
I completed my bachelor's degree at Concordia University, same one as Julian in Montreal. And
Perfect.
I'm currently at McGill, also in Montreal, but bachelor's from Concordia journalism.
Awesome. I mean, those are two great schools, by the way. So I'm glad we got that out there. Now we've got every base covered for everybody who is on this call.
By the way,
I'm in.
Might I add that I think, aside from Seth, Julian, Noah is probably the closest in age, the guest and closest in age to us that we've had on this show so far. So that's cool. That's
good.
Shout out Millennium.
Yeah. I don't think we need to expose Noah's age on here, but he's pretty close. I think he's closer to your age than mine, though.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay, let me jump into the first question. Yes, I want to jump into the first question here because I read about this and I need to confirm this here. Is it true when you were growing up, one of the first dream jobs you envisioned as a child, or as a young person at least, was to work as a dentist, but not just as a dentist, a TV dentist?
Yeah, that's correct. That is correct. I think
How does that work?
I'm not sure exactly how it works. I think that what happened was I was young and I saw a variety of different jobs, and most kids that age probably say, I want to be an astronaut or a cowboy or something else that's outrageous, out of this world. And I also just had something that was outrageous and out of this world. It just was completely different than everybody else. And so people ask me, I don't know where it came from. I don't know where my love of the art of dentistry came from and working on people's teeth. For some reason, people would ask me when I was 5 or 6 years old, and I wouldn't hesitate. That was the best part. I had it right here, ready to go. Yeah, I want to be a TV dentist. I said it with conviction, with my chest as well. And people would say, well, what is that? I'd say, a TV dentist, like as if it was real, and other people did it for a living and went home to their family, and their wife would say, or their husband would say, how was work today? And they would just respond, we worked on a stage 5 molar and the audience really enjoyed it. Like that was a normal thing in my head for some reason. And so I think eventually, my dad tells this beautiful story about when he was young, and he went to his dad, he had a lisp, and he just said, I want to be a sportscaster with a lisp. And his dad said without hesitation, well, that's what you're going to do. And he was 7 years old at the time. And he tells this beautiful tale about how it instilled the confidence in him to move forward and then really follow that dream. And so when I was 6 or 7 and I told him I want to be a TV dentist, I thought he was going to be very supportive, but he said, okay, but what exactly is that? How are you going to be doing dentistry on TV? And I'm like, I don't know. He goes, just think about it. See how that's going to work. And so I think I realized that wasn't going to happen. And he was very supportive of everything else that I did. But that was one. He said, maybe don't consider being the Dr. Phil of dentistry.
Well, the TV part stayed the same. Just the dentistry didn't end up happening.
Yeah. Well, I think I realized pretty quickly, Frank, that people don't like looking at other people's mouths. People don't. Like, nobody wants to turn on Channel 7 and see someone getting a filling. That's not fulfilling for anybody. And I realized that quickly enough to pivot.
How long did it take for you to come up with that line?
That one, I'll be 100% honest, 7 days.
That's pretty good. That's really good. That 7 days ago was when we asked you to be on the podcast. So that's really awesome.
I've been thinking about it just in anticipation that you're going to ask about TV dentist. I have been thinking about that for 7 days.
Nice. Actually, in prep for this show, Julian kind of filled me in on you guys, how far back you went. And he told me that before you got the Clippers gig, you were working college radio at WAER in Syracuse, and that you had done some NBA Summer League games, G League games. So you accumulated a bunch of experience, but before you had even left school. If it weren't for that phone call from Fox Sports, though, about the gig, where do you think you would have ended up, after graduating?
It's a great question. It really is. And I think that, as you guys know, and anybody who's started in this industry and trying to navigate through it knows, it's a lot about circumstance, timing, and luck. And I was very fortunate. I am very fortunate for a variety of reasons, but the timing was perfect in terms of the Clippers thing coming together. When I was graduating, and it wasn't just me, there were a variety of other candidates in my class. And so I just was lucky that they liked my stuff, and my name, I think, helped, that I had some familiarity around the league. And then it was up to me to go to the interview and the audition and be me. And that's exactly my mindset. That's what it was going in, was, I've got nothing to lose at this point. So just go be yourself, and hopefully they like it. And so I was fortunate in that sense. But if it weren't for the timing, if it weren't for all of these factors coming together when they did, I don't know. I think I probably was stuck around on the East Coast. I'm from just outside New York City, about 25, 30 minutes away. And so growing up, I was in the city all the time. And I think that I had always envisioned myself being in New York City after graduation. My parents always told my sister and myself that that's something you want to do when you're still young, is live in the city at some point, because that's what they did out of college. They lived there, and they just said that the experience of actually living in the city and having friends and all that, it's special. And so I think for both of us, in our minds, we saw that and said, yeah, that's what we're going to do one day. And it just didn't happen that way. It happened for me. I went to the West Coast, and I've loved it ever since I got here. The lifestyle is fantastic. The weather, I'm sorry to you guys, is tremendous, even though I get to travel all the time. So I'm back in Toronto, and I'm back in all these other cold weather places anyways. So it's not like I have to just completely give up my Timbs and my jackets. Like, I got all of them ready to go. But yeah, no, I think that it just, things have worked out as they were supposed to so far. And who knows, maybe in a couple of years, something else comes up and I'm back on the East Coast. But for right now, I'm really enjoying being here in LA.
Can you take us through that process of getting interviewed by the Clippers for the gig and meeting with Steve Ballmer for that opportunity, where I think you're also flying back and forth between Syracuse and LA for some of these interviews as well? Can you kind of just take us through what it was like just going through that opportunity?
Yeah, well, when I got the phone call to actually come out and interview, when they told me the whole deal, I thought that Ashton Kutcher was going to pop out and I was being punked. Nice. I didn't believe it. I did not. And I don't know if anyone truly would, just based on the circumstance. I was a senior. I was getting ready to just go do a radio show. And, I was starting to think about what the next steps were in my life. And so I get that phone call, and things, of course, change in an instant. And so the process for me, I got myself mentally ready, and they didn't tell me what game I was going to be auditioning with until about a day before, because they don't want me to go watch it a bunch of times so I know exactly what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. But they had to give me enough time to at least prepare the two teams. I knew I was going to be doing the Clippers, so I'd already prepared them. It was really the other team. And so it ended up being the Clippers and Celtics. and Kyrie Irving was on that Celtic team, and it was that team from 3 years ago or so. So I had a good idea. I followed the NBA. I already had religiously enough that I had a good enough idea of what the teams would look like. And so the whole process for me was exactly how I described. My mentality was, okay, you know what? I am just starting my career. So to even have the experience of going through an interview process like this, that's amazing. That's a great first step. And if I don't get it, then I can take this experience and apply it to the next opportunity that I get. So my mentality was, I have nothing to lose. I'm playing with house money here. Nobody expects me to get this job. Nobody expects me to go in there and wow anyone. I'm just a throw-in wild card candidate. And so if I thought that way, I thought, all right, I've got no pressure on me. And so I walked in there with no pressure. I wasn't really nervous or anything because that's how I was thinking. I didn't think about it of, I have to do this. I have to get this. And so the interview went well. I've got a little problem with cursing, I would say. I curse a little too much. And so I was cursing in the interview process. I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to show them me. And for some reason, I guess that exuded a level of confidence that they liked, that I was willing to go there and feel comfortable enough with them to do it. And so that I felt good after the interview aspect. And then we went straight to the audition, which I did with Corey Maggette, longtime NBA player who I grew up watching and I was a huge fan of. And it was a big time Clipper for a long time. And so to do it with him and talk about, he was a Duke guy. So that was the year Zion and all of them were at Duke. So I talk about Zion with him and Duke and ACC and Hughes, and then a variety of topics basically. And it's just getting to know him, do the audition. And then a week later, I flew out to Seattle to do the interview with Steve Ballmer. And that to me was really, now that I got that, because I didn't realize I was going to be doing it until after that first interview. Once I got that one, I said, okay, now this is a little more real. There was slightly more pressure, slightly more nervousness, anxiousness in there. But even so, I think my mentality carried over of, you know what? I'm happy to be here. No matter what happens, great experience. So let me just go be myself. And Steve made that super easy. And anybody who has ever met Steve, even if it's one time, they'll probably echo the same sentiment because he just makes you feel like you've known him. He's somebody who is asking you questions and genuinely wants to know the answers. And he's exactly what you see on TV, whether it be the Windows 95 launch where he's going like this and fist bumping everywhere and sweating pockets of sweat on his button down shirt. And Bill Gates is doing like the worst barbecue dance moves ever, you know, where it just looks like he's being
like
controlled by someone. Yeah, well, he looks like he's being controlled by someone else. Like it's an AI trying to assimilate with humans and show off dance moves. But Ballmer, all that energy transfers through. And so when I asked him, I've told this before, but when I asked him, because he said, you have any questions for me? I said, yeah, well, what do you want to see? What do you expect out of your broadcaster? He said, again, no hesitation. He had it ready to go. Said, well, someone who's hardcore. And at this point, I'm thinking like,
how do you have these accents down?
Well, how do I exemplify hardcore? Do I have to like run off the wall or like get on the table in the middle of this? So I stayed calm and I just said, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, no, I could be hardcore. He's like, okay. I'm like, all right, great. And I must have convinced him enough because he trusted me to take the job as the radio announcer. So it was awesome. And I think that if there's anything that I could take away and pass along to anybody else is exactly what I said. Look at it as just, hey, this is a great opportunity that I'm in. There's no pressure. I'm going in there just showing them who I am. And that confidence will carry the rest of the weight.
Well, I mean, you did that. You got the position. You earned it. So congrats to you, Noah. Bringing you back or bringing you to the current day NBA. What's it been like covering the sport as it continues to be in the midst of the pandemic?
It's strange. It's different, and similar to it's really everybody's life, no matter the job. I don't care if you are a custodian. I don't care if you are a cameraman. I don't care if you are a marine biologist. Whatever you're doing in life has been altered in some way, shape, or form in the last 12 plus months. And it's certainly the same for us in the media industry and in particular with doing and calling these games. I'm not traveling anymore, at least for the time being. Now that hopefully will change in the coming months as more and more people get vaccinated. I think that more and more of us will be going back to our normal schedules. But for the time being, all the road games I do out of a very small closet-sized studio in downtown LA. So I'm looking at a computer-sized screen. I'm just calling the action as if I were watching it at home, essentially. And so that's been an adjustment for sure. I actually felt pretty confident the fact that I was only 1 year removed from school, where I had to do stuff like that, where I had to figure out how to get through situations that maybe weren't perfect. That helped me because I wasn't too far removed where I was so used to this way of doing it, where most of the broadcasters I felt were, and understandable. If you've been doing it one way for 25 years and now you have to do it a completely separate way where you're taking out of the equation a feel for the environment, seeing things happen as they develop, seeing things on the sideline as they're happening really in the background. You take away all those factors, it makes the job a bit harder. And so I was glad for my sake that being the young guy and being the rookie, it wasn't as bad of a transition, and I felt that I could do it. And so I've just adapted this mentality of if someone tunes into my radio broadcast, I don't want them to know that I'm not there. I'm not going to make mention that I'm not there unless I absolutely have to. If there's something that I can't get to, if there's a problem scoring, which has happened, if there's a problem on site and I have no idea what's happening because they don't tell us, then I have to say it. But otherwise, if someone tunes in and they just hear me call the action, my goal is for them to believe that I am there. And so it's been a challenge for me. I use it as almost getting through levels of a game. And how can I get to the next level of this and that? So it's been different, but I think we've all adjusted, and it's just going to make, when we return to the normal way of doing it, it's going to make it that much better and that much more exciting, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, here's to returning to normalcy, hopefully sooner than later. Sticking with the NBA, the fact that you are in your role as a radio broadcaster for an NBA team is cool enough. But to do it in LA, of course, and obviously dope city, to do it for a franchise like the Clippers, which is now the up and up, they've got Kawhi Leonard and all these great players. You now find yourself calling games between the Clippers and even the Los Angeles Lakers. I think over the weekend, those two teams played off against each other. How does it feel to have the opportunity to call games in arguably the league's best rivalry right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't know if you guys are big Raptors fans. So if you are, I apologize that we've taken the Raptors and brought them basically to the West Coast.
I just want to stop you right there, my brother. I just want to stop you right there. I'm just going to say this about the Raptors. I'm not going to say I'm an actual fan of the Raptors. I'm just happy that they won, because we all know how we care about other sports like hockey in this country. To see Toronto and the whole country go off on Kawhi, dude, you had to be there. It was one of the most incredible things to see. So I just had to stop and just kind of add that little addendum in that little explainer there. But it was awesome. But you don't have to apologize to me. You don't have to apologize to me for taking Kawhi.
So I know it's more now than just Kawhi. It's Kawhi and Serge Ibaka, which I've got friends within the Raptors organization, and they're just like, congratulations to the Los Angeles Raptors at this point. That's what they call them. But it's all of what you said, Julian, is 150% correct. When we were back last year for Kawhi's return at Scotiabank Arena, it was this aura of energy and appreciation that I had never seen before. And even walking the streets of Toronto, so that was in December of 2019, so before the pandemic. And, I was walking around because everybody else from out here, most of the people within the organization are Angelenos, are Californians. And so when cold weather arises, they just stay inside. I'm still somewhat used to it, especially in central New York, which is not far from that border of the Toronto area. It's not quite the same level. I will say when we were in Toronto last year, it was brutally cold, but I dealt with it. I put on my jacket and I walk around and everyone's like, "You're crazy. What are you doing?" I'm like, it's all good. But even walking around, because we're not far from the arena where we're staying. And so you could see a lot of Raptors fans around, and they were all still just so appreciative of the fact that Kawhi brought the title to Canada. And so to see that and be there for that was really cool. And a similar sentiment, being there for the Battle for LA now, which was my first official regular season game as a member of the Clippers organization. Clippers, Lakers, opening day 2019. I think it was October 22nd. Actually, I don't think I know, and I'll remember the date forever because it was such an amazing game. It was such an amazing way to start this journey and start this career. The feeling in that environment and that was a Clipper home game, and it was wild. There's nothing that's matched it to me. Everyone always asks me, what's your favorite thing that you've called, favorite event, whatever it might be. It's hard to top when it's a full house, Lakers and Clippers, and they're both as good as they have been. And especially last year when both of them were the co-favorites, certainly in the Western Conference, but even in the entire NBA. And so to feel that environment, feel the just back and forth energy, it's something that I can't fully describe. You just have to be there to really experience. So those were two of my favorite games, that the Raptors game in Toronto, because of that welcomed vibe and how much people appreciated Kawhi coming back. And then all those games with the Lakers and Clippers in front of a full capacity crowd. It's unmatched.
Noah, you mentioned earlier that you've been following basketball religiously from a young age. Julian wrote here that he must have some insider knowledge here, but you tagged along with your dad to some games when you were younger. Did you grow up a Nets fan? Was that your first love? That was your first love, eh?
Oh yeah. That I was a huge Nets fan growing up. I mean, I was a huge sports fan in general, to the point that when I was really young, I would wake up every morning and I wouldn't tell my parents which player I wanted to be called that day. And they would just have to keep guessing until they got it right. Yeah. I know. I listen, you guys are clearly understanding. I was a screwed up kid. I wanted to be a TV dentist, and then I wanted to be called different athletes every day. And I wouldn't tell them which athlete it was. So we'd be in the grocery store and they'd be like, Noah. And I would not respond. It's Noah. They'd start raising their voice and everyone's looking around. Finally, they'd have to say, like, Dirk. And I'd be like, yeah. And like, oh, hey, come on. Like, they're like, you named your son Dirk? What's wrong with you? They're like, no, it's don't even. Just come on. Let's go get the produce. It's just that's how much I loved, and especially the NBA. It was always my favorite league, and my favorite sport was always basketball. And so, yes, the Nets, because I was in New Jersey, they were in New Jersey. And as I was really in my formative early years, that's when they were really good with Jay Kidd and Richard Jefferson and Kenyon Martin getting to back-to-back NBA Finals appearances. And so I got to go to a lot of those games and really learn and experience that team. And so that molded, I would say, my sports fandom. I think everybody has those moments in their life where they're watching a game or they're following a team, and that really molded who they are as a sports fan. And so for me, those Nets over the years, and I stuck with them through whatever it was going to be, the 12-70 year when they were still in New Jersey, then the move to Brooklyn where they were good the first year, then they'd make the trade for KG, Paul Pierce, and all that obviously goes awry, and then the rebuild into what they are now. And so I still have an affinity in my heart for the Brooklyn Nets. The Clippers are always going to be number one. Clippers are my priority no matter what, but I am rooting for the Nets from afar and selfishly hoping for Nets Clippers NBA Finals matchup in the not so distant future.
I was going to ask about that. I realize we've asked a lot of questions about you, and we're going to continue to ask questions about you, but I'll ask an actual, question about the NBA right now. Clippers Nets, I mean, there's a good chance we could see those two teams playing off against each other. How do you think that could match up going forward for the rest of the season?
Yeah, it's not to the level I would say yet as it feels like they're on a collision course as those two teams. It feels like the Nets have separated themselves in the Eastern Conference at this point. They're so talented. They're starting to play better defense. They're signing more and more guys by the day. And it just feels like they've got all the tools necessary to go out and not just win the East, but win the whole thing. When I look at the West, there are so many teams that are dangerous. So the Lakers and the Clippers are always going to be talked about as the two to beat, just based on the talent that they have on the roster, the coaching staff, et cetera. But Denver's really good. Utah's obviously really good. Phoenix has been great this year. Portland's always dangerous with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. So you've got all these teams in the West. And obviously, I didn't even mention Dallas with Luka Doncic. So you've got so many teams in the West that are going to make that path difficult. But yeah, it's very possible. And with the addition of Rajon Rondo for the Clippers, that is a huge boost come playoff time. So yes, it would be fantastic. As for how they match up, we've seen it now twice, and both games came right down to the wire with the Nets squeaking out a couple of close wins. So I would love to see a full 7-game series between the two teams, because Tyronn Lue has a lot of adjustments he has not made yet. And I think that as we go on, we're going to see more and more from the Clippers, which I'm excited about.
We've tried to not ask too many questions about your dad, and I think we've reached the point in the interview where we have to do it now. One of the first things I remember, this might be a little long, bear with me here. One of the first things I remember in meeting you, obviously, the name is there. It's like, oh, your dad is Iron Eagle, big fan of your dad. I think both Frank and I are both fans of your father.
Of course.
And I remember you, just looking at you and talking with you, just making conversation with you. And in terms of, just asking about what you want to do and how you want to go about your career, you made it a point to be like, hey, you know what? Like, I know I have my dad, but I want people to know that, they can know me and I'm able to do the work and I'm actually good on my own. And I don't need my dad to kind of just push me off and put me in all these different places. You've made it for yourself. So I need to give you those props for that. But of course, as you've continued to make a way for yourself in sports media, the comparisons to your dad are going to show up. The articles, whether it's in The Athletic or whether it's in Sports Illustrated or wherever, they're going to pop up. On TV, it's already happened where they've put you side by side with your father on air, and you two have gone back and forth, which is really great TV. But I'm just curious for your personal perspective, like when you're asked about your dad, or you're in a situation where you and your dad have to share the screen. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the comparisons to your father? Do you feel it adds any pressure to you? I'm just curious, like, how do you feel about being compared to your dad?
Well, I appreciate the kind words, Julian. And the first thing I remembered about you was your incredible stash when you were at Syracuse. It was next level.
Thank you, sir.
It was impressive stuff.
Appreciate that,
It was number
sir.
one in Newhouse at the time. It was without a doubt.
No one told me that. I would have appreciated that. Anyway.
Okay, I can't wait. Honestly, I can't wait for people to find out I'm adopted after all these years. No, there's zero chance of that. Just absolutely zero. Yeah, I think it's honestly, I embrace all of it. I really do. And I think that the main reason, I should say, not the only, but the main reason that I ended up deciding to go with this path is because I saw him do it all the time. And I saw how much joy he got out of it. And when you've got a close relationship with a parent, whether it be a mom or a dad, I think that you want to emulate them in some way, at least. You want to be like them in some way. And so for me, I saw what he did. I saw how much he enjoyed what he did. I saw how much joy he gave other people. And I said, well, this is awesome. And I'm not going to be able to play many sports if I'm going to top out at 5'8" on a good day. So yeah, I can do something to stay within it. I love entertainment as well. I want to blend those two. And so, yes, to create the own name for myself, it's just being my own self all the time and not shielding any of my personality when the red light comes on. And so how I handle myself when the two of us are together, I think that we like to poke fun at each other just on a day-to-day basis. Forget about when we're on camera. Like that, everyone brings up when we did the Miami Syracuse game at the same time in Miami. And they're all like, man, how'd you guys come up with all that? Or how many takes was that? We did an interview before the game and I sat down. They had told me just beforehand, they're like, hey, we want you to interview your dad. I said, okay, no problem. So I sit down in the chair and I said, well, what do you guys want me to ask? They said, really, whatever you want. I said, okay. I said, how long do you want it? They go, 5-ish minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. I said, all right. And they said, all right, go. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so we just went. And so it was just that first take and that was it. But I think the reason that it hit so well and it went so well and people seem to receive it so well is because they can relate to it. And it was just us being us and having a conversation and poking fun at one another. It's no different than what we do at the dinner table, just talking back and forth and making jokes. And so I think we've tried to carry that over into the quote unquote public eye. And so far it's been so good.
Bringing you back to last season in the NFL now, Noah, you worked on Nickelodeon's NFL broadcast, right? Between the New Orleans Saints and Chicago Bears, the wildcard round game. Obviously you had to account for the fact that you were broadcasting to a younger age. And earlier in the episode, you said you're already making adjustments as a play-by-play announcer during the pandemic. What other adjustments did you have to make in your preparation, knowing that your audience would rightfully so be younger?
Yeah, Frank, are you a Bengals fan, Frank? I see a Bengals hat in your background.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right,
you see
Joe
that
Burrow.
beauty right there?
Nice. Hey, listen, I've got high hopes for them. T. Higgins helped me in fantasy this year.
Oh my goodness, what a guy! What a guy!
Yeah, I think that was an adjustment-based broadcast overall for sure. It's just when I was told that I was going to be doing it, or when they asked me to do it, it was an assignment made tailored for me, I thought, because it combined the two things that I love. It combined the sport and it combined the entertainment value. And so I felt that my skill set worked well for it, and I could use what I had in my knowledge bank to cater to the audience they were looking to cater to, and then go a little beyond that audience, which is what ended up happening. We expected that kids were going to like it, because what we were doing was we were describing the game and really breaking it down for people who had never really watched football before. We were captivating this new audience, and we were using the animation, the slime, and everything to really engage them. So we felt confident going in that young people were going to like it. That wasn't a concern for us. What we were surprised with were how many older people liked it, anywhere from 50 plus even.
Yep.
The amount of full aged adults, 22 and above, that texted me or tweeted or whatever it might be, how much they enjoyed watching the game. That was really cool for us. And I think that Nate Burleson and myself, who is also on the game, I think we kind of knew going in, you know what, we've got a chance to really grab as many people as possible, because we can stretch generations now. We have Nate, who is around 40-ish, and myself in my mid-20s, and then we had the two kids who were on Nickelodeon. We felt that we could bounce off of them and then bounce off of ourselves and our knowledge of older shows on Nickelodeon to strike a nostalgia chord on people. And that's exactly what we did. And so the adjustments weren't difficult. I think that what we said and we agreed on going into the game was, let's just have fun. And hopefully that shines through the TV and people will have fun along with us. And fortunately enough, that's exactly how it went. And I hope we get to do it again, because seriously, we all had a blast in that game.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how scared were you of being slimed during the broadcast?
0. So I played it up, and I think that's what they were hoping for. At least I hope that's what they were hoping for. But I wanted to be slimed. Any kid who grew up watching Nickelodeon, it was a dream to be slimed. Like I remember when I was younger, I always thought, one day I'm going to get slimed. One day I'm going to do this. And so I thought this was my chance. I was like, life is full circle. It's crazy how things happen. And so I was so ready. And Nate was supposed to slime me at the very end. And then there were two things that happened. One, Sean Payton, coach of the Saints, said, you know what? I'm cool to be slimed. Slime away. So they took one bucket away. And then I guess right as he was about to dump it, because that was literally on the edge, he was ready to go and just completely douse me with the green stuff, which I probably shouldn't say. Yeah, right as that was about to happen, the IT group and the technology people were like, no, because there's all this equipment there. And they said, do not do that. It's going to mess up a lot of our equipment. So he got called off at the last second, and I went home sad. But now the problem is I walk around on the sidewalk, and I'm just looking over my left shoulder all the time, because I do think somehow there's going to come a day where I'm not expecting it, and I'm just going to get crushed with slime. And the only other concern I have, Julian, you might know this, you probably do, is I care a lot about my hair. I do. Yes. And I was told by Gabby Nevaeh Green, who was one of the other people on the broadcast, it took her 2 hours to get it out of her hair. So that's a concern as well. So two concerns. One, that it's just going to come out of nowhere like a coach at the end of the game. And two, the hair could be a problem.
I completely understand that. So we've got through all these questions with you, Noah. Frank, it's time for our favorite segment here on the Waterboys podcast. The rapid fire word association segment. We call it rapid fire, but we've noticed the last few times we've done it with our guests will just like mention something and they'll go in on that word or whatever they choose to say. You have all the right to do the same as have previous guests have. So you don't have to be short if you don't want to, but we'll give you a phrase or we'll give you a word and you just tell us the very first thing that comes to your mind. Simple?
Yeah, I mean, guys, I just told you I have a cursing problem. So there's a variety of things that could come out of my mouth during this rapid fire.
I'm surprised. You mentioned that, and I was trying to plug in at some point. Like, you could swear if you want to on this podcast.
Sure.
I don't think we're gonna get.
I try to stay away in public forums, but listen, if we're going rapid fire, there is no bounds to what is bound to come out.
You know what? Before we get to it, actually, has a swear word ever come out live or close to it?
No,
or
I actually was just at Tennis Channel a few days ago, and I came close. It wasn't even like a weird moment or anything. I came really close, and I said something along the lines of, and based on his skill set, he can do whatever he wants on the court. Yeah, it was a quick save. I think it didn't go noticed.
I remember on the Nickelodeon broadcast on YouTube, there's this video that's gone viral now, and there's this clip where the referee is announcing a penalty, and you just hear a player go, "What the?" And obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know what happened, but
we heard it. It was Cordero Patterson who we actually
that's it.
Talked to before the game, and I enjoyed talking to him. He's like a big kid, but yeah, it was clear. It was loud and clear.
Yeah,
and we all looked at each other, or I should say, Nate and I looked at each other right away, and Nate was quick to just go, "Okay," and I was like.
let's go. Let's
just keep going. They were just like, just ignore that. I go, okay, ignored.
All right, let's move through to the rapid fire. The first one, your favorite sports announcer, not including your dad.
All right, I'll give you a couple because I can't just pick one. Adam Amin is really good. Jason Benetti is really good. Kevin Kugler is excellent. And then you've got some of the big names. Mike Tirico is among the most talented sportscasters in the world. So I'll give you those to start. There are others, but I know this is rapid fire, and I've already gone long-winded.
No, that's fine. Like we said, you have every right to go long-winded if you want. I don't think you've gone wrong with any of the picks you have so far. The next one I'll mention might be pretty hyper-local to Syracuse, but the best place to eat in Syracuse.
Possibilities, probably.
Yeah, possibilities is probably like, you're going out for a nice night, either with your girl, with your friends, or whatever. That's probably the nicest place you could probably go to.
Yeah, I would say. I'd say it's when people ask me when they're going to visit, they say, "Well, where do I need to go?" That's generally what I tell them, because I feel like I've got 100% success rate of whether or not people like it.
Were you a big wings over Syracuse guy?
I would get wings over from time to time. Yes, that was I really liked a la mode. That was a great place. Sandwiches. They did some great stuff over there. I actually have been thinking about it recently. I'm like, man, I wish I had one of those out here because they made some really good sandwiches.
Yeah, you have In-N-Out over where you're at, so
True.
It kind of balances out.
True.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it all does. You're right.
Next one, favorite athlete.
That's a tough one, Julian. That's a tough one.
I mean, like, first
depending on the person.
The first person that comes to mind is Vince Carter.
Okay.
Which another guy who was Toronto now, but New Jersey. So I feel like that was taken. But now I feel like that has all been amended, and he will get his statue one day. But yes, Vince Carter was always my favorite athlete. I had a huge poster of him up like right next to my bed when I was growing up, and I got to work with him, which was the most surreal of all those moments.
What's your favorite dunk from Vince Carter? Just adding that question in there.
Over Alonzo Mourning with the Nets.
Ooh, interesting. I thought you would have said like the dunk de la mort at the Olympic Games.
That's probably what most people would say, but just given how big of a Nets fan I was, and I watched that one live, and I went nuts. I was running around my house, and I was young, but that's one that will always be seared into my brain.
Were you ever called Vince? Did you ever ask to be called Vince?
I'm 100%. Yeah, there was Vince. You name it. Anybody who was big in the NBA at that time, without a doubt.
All right.
Before
sure.
Oh my god. There's just some small little white kid walking through a grocery store. Be like, "Okay, Dikembe, we have to go."
Exactly. Yeah, people really thought my parents had issues.
Oh man. Next one, dream celebrity encounter.
Barack Obama.
Wow. Without hesitation. Why Barack Obama?
President during my formative years and the coolest leader of any kind of all time. I mean, I just everything about him, his whole essence, and I just would want to talk to him and learn from him. I just think he's the coolest person ever.
Do you have a Barack Obama impersonation?
Of course.
I know you do. I know you do.
Yeah, it's this was always the favorite one that I was doing, but it's Sasha, Malia, okay, no, we're gonna no, let me get it out. Yep, we're gonna deserve that dog that's coming to the White House.
Whoa, that's not bad. That wasn't bad. I laughed a bit at that one. Last one for you. I mean, I've laughed a bit. Fine. Last one here for you. Game you were most nervous to call.
Oh, maybe Syracuse Duke at Cameron, because just the stakes there, number one team in the country, and the spot within the arena that they put us in. We're behind the basket, pretty much in a corner, so it's hard to see. And it was myself and Julian's other good friend, Drew Carter, on the call. Mm-hmm. And the funniest part about all of it was, so we're flying now. We're on our way on the flight to Durham. And I said to Drew, it's your pick. You either, because you switch off at WAER in Syracuse, you switch off doing halves. So I said, Drew, it's your pick. You want the first half or the second half? And I figured he was going to take the second half. He said, honestly, dude, I think it's going to be a blowout, so I'll take the first half. I said, really? He goes, yeah, they're going to get crushed, man. I'll go, okay. Sure enough, the halftime comes. They're like up one or down one or something. And Zion's going nuts. RJ Barrett's having a somewhat decent game. And I look at him. He's just like, there's no way. They're just going to get blown out, dude, in the second half. I go, all right. Sure enough, not only do they not get blown out, game went to overtime, and Syracuse wins in overtime and stuns the number one team in the country, completely ruins their undefeated ACC season, all that stuff. So I know Drew always talks about that, and I don't think he feels bad or feels like he missed out or anything, because he got Elijah Hughes hit a 3/4 court shot at the end of the first half. It was just an unbelievable experience to be there and do that game. Although the worst part of all of it for the two of us was we had to go to the bathroom as bad, I think, as anybody of all time. I think we almost had issues with our bladders for the rest of our lives, because we had to go at the end of the first half. And so at halftime, we're running. But if you've ever been to Cameron, you know it's impossible unless you get escorted to a different type of bathroom, or you have a different path to a bathroom. There's zero chance of getting there in time and getting back to your spot in time. And so we tried. We saw Sean McDonough, who clearly had been there before and had a much better plan of doing it, because he was very clear about where he was going. And so we kept walking. Then we saw some Syracuse people, and we went to a different bathroom because one had too long of a line. Then the next bathroom had too long of a line. By the time we realized, they were like, there's 4 minutes left in the half. We just have to go back. So we went back, and I mentioned the game went into overtime. So I'm doing this game, and I'm literally like this as I'm calling it. I'm just dancing in my seat. Like, I think people must have thought that I just had some issue and I had weird movement problems, because both of us were just dancing back and forth as if we were dodging bullets like Neo in the Matrix. It was bad. It was really bad. I've never felt that type of pain from having to go that bad. And then the best part is as everybody knows, when they've been in that situation, the moment you actually get to, right when the game was over and we got to a bathroom, it was like heaven on earth.
It's the most relieving feeling ever.
Oh my God, it is amazing.
Oh man, I've had a lot of fun chatting with you, Noah. Actually, I'll just add this one last one here, because we've harped on the fact that you like to have been called different names while you're at the grocery store. Who was the most obscure NBA player name you used while out with your parents?
You're gonna have to. You would have to ask them. I don't remember. They just told me, they were like, "We were really embarrassed by you." I mean, there's nothing else to say. You embarrassed us. I was a big Keyshawn Johnson fan growing up, a huge Keyshawn Johnson fan, because I was a Jets fan. He was the number 1 overall pick the year I was born. And so that was the first ever jersey I owned as like a little baby. And so I think that I was Keyshawn a decent amount. And so that just, I don't think that went well.
Frank, I'll tell you this. Both Noah and I are both Jets fans. You see, Noah grows up with a Keyshawn Johnson jersey. I grew up with a Vinny Testaverde jersey. What the hell am I thinking? Anyway, it's not about my fandom for the Jets. This episode was about Noah Eagle.
No,
Noah,
but listen, we can always talk about the Jets and being a pain of being a Jets fan. I'm always available for that.
I was just going to say,
Sam Darnold got traded.
That's right.
Just got traded.
That's right.
Yes. Oh, and he's going to flourish. You watch. He's going to flourish.
For sure. Absolutely.
And the Jets are going to end up with like Zach Wilson or something. Yeah, I want Justin Fields. I want Justin Fields, though.
I feel like Fields is getting the raw end of the stick there, the short end of the.
I'm really interested to see how the quarterbacks all fall. I mean, the Jets losing to the Rams 10 minutes from my apartment while I had to sit and watch in my apartment was absolutely brutal. Jesus. It was absolutely brutal. And so, yeah, no, I mean, because considering the fact that when I was a senior at Syracuse was Trevor Lawrence's freshman year at Clemson, and our coach at Syracuse, Dino Babers, told me word for word. I said, well, it was his first time starting was against Syracuse. Literally, he had never started a game before. I said, well, tell me, is this kid as good as they say he is? He said, let me tell you, the moment that he is eligible, he will be the number one pick in the draft. I said, but you haven't even really seen him play. He goes, don't need to. I go, really? He was right. So that was a bummer because if the Jets had gotten him, at least you feel you're set. I still think these other guys have a chance to be very good. I think all of those names have a chance. Fields, whether it be Wilson, whether it be Lance, all of them have an opportunity to be good. So shout out Jets. Let's see how you can break our hearts next.
I was also going to say all three of us understand what pain is in the NFL when it comes to football. So there's that at least.
I felt secondhand Bengals pain when I saw that Burrow went down with an injury. It was brutal. I don't know because I'm a big Burrow guy. Like I was all aboard the Burrow bus. But
I mean, how could you not?
Burrow bus.
How could you not be?
I'm looking forward. To year 2 of Burrow and company. I think that it'll be fun.
We've gone through NBA analysis. We've gone through NFL draft analysis. We've gone through the Eagle family analysis as well. That just goes to show how good Noah Eagle is. I'm sorry we didn't even get to ask you any tennis questions because weren't you at the were you calling tennis over the weekend? It was there was Bianca Andreescu, I think, was in a final, right? Were you calling that game?
Yeah. So I hosted the show that day. She ended up retiring, unfortunately. It's just really good to see her back on the court, though, by the way. And so she was in the final. She lost or retired against Ash Barty, world number 1. But she's now up to 6 in the world. Shout out to BB doing her thing again. It's good to see her back on the court.
Guys, I can't hype Noah Eagle enough. But then again, I mean, you just have to listen in for yourself, whether it's for the NBA, whether it's for the NFL, whether it's for tennis. Who knows? Maybe he'll end up on March Madness one day. Imagine what that would be like. Dude, that'd be insane. Noah, thank you so much for taking the time to join Frank and myself on the Waterboys podcast. Obviously, big fan of yours, and I can't wait to see how far your star rises going forward, man.
Guys, seriously, thank you for having me. It was fun. I appreciate both of you. We'll do it again soon. And
yes, sir.
Go Bengals, go Jets. I feel this is the year. This is it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, guys. Noah Eagle on the Waterboys podcast.